Hello, welcome to the stream. Today we are going to be looking at watercolor ground and which one works the best. I treated my wood discs that I'm going to use today. I did some with the Daniel Smith water ground, some with the core water ground, and some with the acrylic gesso. I used Master's Touch because that's what I had here in the studio. However, I think I linked Liquitex gesso. I know that Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, did a test like this on paper with the different Liquitex, like the gesso, and then the two different watercolor grounds. And I know what results she got on paper. I want to see what kind of results we can get on wood. So today, that's what I've done. Let me just bring this down. Hello, Dee. Hello, Tara. All good on your side. Excellent. Hello, Joseph. Okay. So, hi, Rob. All right. I have the Daniel Smith water ground is here. So this pile that's to the left is Daniel Smith. These right here are the core. And then over here behind my palette, I have the ones that are the acrylic gesso. So I can say first off that when I applied it, the Daniel Smith watercolor ground has a very different texture than the core. The core felt more similar to the acrylic gesso. Now, also I will note that core has like few different watercolor grounds. One that's like I think it actually says cold press, and I'm just using the regular watercolor ground. So today I just thought, I want to paint some ornaments, and I'm just grabbing a couple of my Mimic brushes that I might use. And I pulled out the 4, the 8, and the 12. I haven't linked these below this time, but I can. If anybody needs me to link those, just let me know and I'll link it afterwards. But I think these will probably be fine for everything I'm going to do today. You can use any brushes that you have. Is anybody else working on projects for Christmas? I have been so busy. And speaking of being busy, this will be the last stream before Christmas. Next week, my focus is finishing up everything I need to finish up before the holiday is here and making sure that patrons have everything that they need that is due to them before the end of the month. So next week, we won't be live streaming here at this time. Will there be videos? I'm not sure. I'm not making any promises because I know how busy I already am. It's been crazy. But it's that time of year, right? Okay. So right away, like the texture, I don't think that's picking that up very well. I wonder if my side camera will pick it up. I'm going to switch over to this for a second. No, that is not the one. Sorry, guys, this one. Okay. So can you guys see there? Can you see the texture? There's a lot of texture on that. Ooh, a large pen and wash. Nice. Yeah, there's quite a bit of texture. This is the Daniel Smith watercolor ground. And I tried to keep them nice and smooth, but it definitely has a texture. Now these have dried for just over 24 hours. And then if we take a look at I've got like pieces of bark from the other one sitting on it. If we take a look at the core watercolor ground, this one is much smoother. It is much smoother. And I would say they were probably just as thick as far as the consistency when putting them on. They were probably just as thick, but the Daniel Smith watercolor ground almost had like a kind of like a whipped feeling to it, if that makes sense. Whereas the watercolor ground was just like the acrylic gesso. And I don't know. I'm not sure, Rob, because it doesn't say anything about sanding them for the watercolor ground. I mean, I'm sure I probably could, and I could have put it on again and tried to make it smoother. I wasn't too worried about it. Some of them, like I can see the strokes, if you can see that. I can see the strokes, like my brushwork in them, but some of them are smoother than others. I wasn't really worried about it. So I just, let it go. Could you do that? I would imagine you probably could. It's going to take longer because they say to let it dry between 12 to 48 hours before you actually paint on it. So I'm guessing that that's because it needs that time to cure. But I did 24 hours because everything is so dry here in the studio, and it was on wood, so it would just suck that right in. So yeah, I would say you probably could, or I could have gone back with another coat, but I just, in the interest of time, I just let it be and said, we'll figure it out, and I'll get to be able to I'll be able to tell you if I think maybe it would have needed more, or it was fine, or guess what, that texture doesn't matter. I mean, we'll see. So this was one of the ones that, showing you that again on the side camera there, this one is really textured. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start with this one and see what we get. Now I have my Daniel Smith watercolors, and I may use some Dr. Paige Martin's Bleed Proof White. This is a bonus sample that patrons are getting this month. If you haven't got your package yet, don't worry. It is coming. It is on its way. If I can get mine open, it doesn't want to. There it goes. And every time you open that, you get these like little white flakes everywhere. And if you're Dr. Paige Martin's, mine's not, because I was just working with it. Gets dry, or like it's dried out, just add some water, let it set, mix it back up, and it will be perfect. Okay. So I have that in case I need it, and I think I may, again, you see all those white flakes, made such a mess. All right, and I'm brushing it off because I know if I get water on it, it's going to make a horrible mess on my desk. Okay. So let's come back here. All right. I think I'm just going to kind of check off some of the colors I have on my palette. I'll probably work with a little bit of what's on my palette just to kind of get it cleaned off. Hi, Dylan. Hi, George. Okay. On this one, I think I'm going to do, yeah, I want to work like the sky. See if I can hold this. I'm gonna have to like negatively paint what I want. I think this is going to be similar to one I did last year, maybe. I don't know if I did it as an ornament, but there we go. Now I can just kind of paint around it. I will say it definitely like draws it right in. And I'm just using what was some leftover I believe it was ultramarine blue and some Payne's gray. Yeah, I'm actually going to mix up some more. There we go. That's what I wanted. We are actually under a winter storm watch right now. So I thought, you know what? Why don't we start out with some Let It Snow? It did not snow on my birthday. I was a little disappointed. And I don't know if I am mumbling. I don't know if you guys can hear me well enough. Just not long before the stream, all of a sudden my stomach did like somersaults. I was like, oh no, we are streaming today. This is not allowed. This is really very easy to work with. It is absorbing right in. And I'll say that I don't think that texture is really showing through too much. So I guess in this case, it didn't really matter how precious I was with, making it perfectly smooth. I'm just using ultramarine blue, and is that Payne's gray? Excuse me, this is neutral tint. It is neutral tint. Did you? Sleet and freezing rain? I don't know. I guess it depends on which way it goes as far as how much snow we're going to get. So, I don't know. We will see. Of course, I'm all for it. I don't mind. I don't mind when it snows. It doesn't bother me one bit. See, and I want that stormy want that to be like a stormy sky behind him. He is just going to be looking up, waiting to catch those snowflakes falling. There we go. All right, before I go in and paint the rest of him, I'm actually going to put in some of my snow. I don't know if I'm gonna. I'll probably spatter it because how much fun is that? Just grabbing a paper towel to put underneath him. Yeah, no, not sleet and freezing rain. I could pass on that. Just give me the snow. I'll take the snow. So I am grabbing my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And I'm grabbing my number 4 round. Actually, I've got enough probably in my lid here. I just need to add some water to it. And this may, because the background's still wet, they may spread and bleed, and that's okay. Because if they do kind of spider out, it's just going to look like snowflakes. It's just going to help it look more like snowflakes. So I'm not worried about this being dry. I want it to look like he is in a big old snowstorm. There we go. Put that lid back on. And rinse out, and this is going to make my water a mess. I'm going to rinse back here. Make that one be my dirty, really dirty water. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to set this one aside and let it kind of dry a bit. Let's take, that's the Daniel Smith watercolor dry one. And I'm going to try to keep them like by what they're for. So this is Daniel Smith, this is Core, and then Gesso is the stack that's over here. Okay. Doesn't it? It looks like the big old fat wet snowflakes. Look at those. So it's kind of bleeding out a little. I like it. You're getting warmer. Your weather is broken, Joseph. I saw one model they were talking about the storm after this storm. Depending on which way it goes, like either I can end up with the snow, like the snow track coming up through here more, or if it goes a different way, it could end up like just burying Joseph's area. So who knows? Who knows which one? It was like not the European model, the other one, the G, whatever it is. But yes, because I get all excited about the weather. So I have to watch. I was just checking it out yesterday. I was like, which way do we want to go? Which track do we want? Okay, I think I'm going to do one the exact same way. I need my other brush back. Let's do one that's exactly the same as this. That way there we can kind of compare. So I'll probably do like 3 that are this one, and you know what I mean, and do it that way. But I do have a really special one that I've sketched out that if I have time, I'm going to do at the end. But first we'll kind of compare, doing similar designs on each. So I'm just grabbing, you guys can't see this, but if I turn this, you probably could see what I'm mixing. There we go. Hopefully that's good. So I'm just mixing some ultramarine and I know you can't see my colors, but you can see what I'm doing on the palette. And then some neutral tint. And neutral tint is beautiful too. Okay, and there, that gives us that nice, beautiful, dark, almost like an indigo blue. And so again, I'm going to kind of negatively paint. Just kind of give myself the outline of what will be his little carrot nose. Oops. It probably would have been so much easier if I would have sketched this first. And I did sketch one. I just didn't do it on here. I like sketched, a couple ideas real quick, so. And they'll be similar. They don't have to be identical, but they'll be similar. Okay. Grab me some more water so I can lighten that up just a little bit. So far, you're seeing the pooling on this one. So with the core, I'm actually seeing some of that staying on the surface as if it had more sizing, like a paper that had more sizing. So that's interesting. Whereas the Daniel Smith one, it was just sucking it right down into the wood, but yet I still was getting those soft edges when I kept adding stuff because it was still wet. I think the advent calendar that I did last year with the snowman, I think he had his little, like his carrot nose was pointed up. But this one's going to be even more so than that. So now I'm just going to kind of dab in some darker values, just see how they move around. Now they're kind of sitting, whereas I think I like the way the Daniel Smith one like absorbed in. Of course, that's, you see, much drier there. It kind of got even, you know, kind of evened out its color a bit. Whereas this is definitely staying so far. I've got a variety of values coming through in that background. Now that I just tried to add and it looked like it was lifting. So I may definitely have to just kind of let things dry. And again, a product of me not mixing up enough paint, which happens a lot. Oops, I kind of bumped into him there, but that's okay. I'll touch that up with the bleed proof white when I do the snowman, if I need it. We'll probably see what we can do wet and wet for that and see if we can like lift and move that little spot, make it part of the shadow around the body, around the snowball. Yeah, see, that's wanting to lift. If I go over that too much, it is lifting that out, and I don't want to do that. I just wanted to deposit some of the darker color and like leave it be, but I keep messing with it, which you shouldn't do. Just stop. Okay, there we go. I'm going to hold on a moment, and then I'm going to go ahead and spatter the snow just like I did on this one. Just making sure I have plenty of water in my brush, so I'll be able to spatter this. And I'm just mixing in my lid here. This one, I got some weird marks going. I probably knocked a drop of water off the ferrule of the brush. That's probably what I did. I got some smaller snowflakes here, and this is not, doesn't seem to be spreading out as much. I'll just leave it because you know I can overdo it, and I will. Okay. I always try to keep that closed whenever I'm not working with it because it does definitely seems to dry out, and then you just have to add water. I'll add a little bit of distilled water and stir it up if it starts to feel like it's too thick. But usually, I mean, I just grab a little bit and I'll work it with water in the lid if I'm splattering with it. So there's that. But now look at how this one, see the bloom? One happened here and one happened over here. And I don't know if I dropped, like if I had a drop of water on my ferrule and tapped that on it, and that's what caused that. But I am getting some of the bleeding out like that for like with the snow, for the snowflake effect. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But you can see there with the Daniel Smith, it really kind of blended all together, that background versus staying different values like this is so far. So we'll see how that works. So that's the Daniel Smith, and this is the, I'll put it here. This is the core. All right, one more using the acrylic gesso. Now this one, I'm trying to show you, and that camera's not on. Switch it up again. So this one here, very smooth. The one with the acrylic gesso, those are super smooth. Very, very, almost every single one that I did came out perfectly smooth. I am really curious to see how these, excuse me, how these work. All right, I'm going to switch it back here. Okay. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. Just kind of winging it with the old, I'm going to do some negative painting. I had primed some of these with water beforehand, but everything dries so fast. Hopefully I'll be mixing up enough this time. This is for my lighter value. Grabbing that neutral tint. There's some really nice dark value right there. And I'll be dropping that in more in a minute. This is what we're going to start with. It's lighter wash. All right. Yeah, Dylan, they were talking about like polar vortex coming in. And they're talking like first time since 2010 seeing this happening. I remember winter 2010 because that was like my first full winter back in Maine after we had moved back. Oh, did we get some snow that year? We got some snow. Of course, I thought it was wonderful. It was a lovely welcome home. I might have made my snowman a little smaller this time, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I could do without the sub-zero temperatures for sure. I definitely could do without that. You know, when it's like the upper 20s and it's snowing, that's good. But when it starts going, like we had last January, I think we had a week where we were negative 30s with our wind chill and stuff like that. That's just so bitter cold. That is just horrible. That's when people lose heat and not a good time. So this is still showing because this was so smooth. I'm still seeing the texture of the wood underneath it. I think I kind of like it. As long as it still, some of these little specks I think are dust from the bark. And I think I'm going to right on these ones with the silver Poscas. I have my silver Posca, and I think I'm going to write Let It Snow in silver so that when these hang on a tree, the silver will catch the lights and reflect and be shiny. All right, so now drop in some of that darker value. It's quite interesting being on the wood. Like I would have thought that the gesso would have completely sealed it so it wouldn't have been able to absorb so much. But I just did the one coat of gesso and it's still very much absorbing, but yet letting this stay on the surface a bit still. It's letting the surface stay wet for a little bit because you see if I move there, I could, and I bet I could wipe that off if I wanted to right now, which I won't, but I bet I could if I wanted to. All right, just getting a little bit darker value, a little more neutral tint, and a little more water, just kind of trying to clean up the muddy spot here. All right, just kind of gonna definitely get the darker around my snowman so he'll kind of pop and stand out. You see the rings showing up? The rings are showing through the rings of the wood. Are showing through. I still don't mind. I think that's interesting that the rings are showing up. All right, so again, let that sit for a minute while I get my, and this one's so much darker and more blue. I think I mixed them pretty much the same based on looking at what was on my palette, but it's interesting how the blue is showing up. Yeah, George, I excuse me. See, I cover my mouth. I don't want you guys to get anything. I'm not sick, but just have it. Anyways, I saw, like I said, Lindsay did this treatment to paper, and I thought, well, gee, I wonder if I could do that on wood because I really wanted to paint with the watercolors. I mean, I could have done acrylic. I was using the acrylic paints last week. That would have been fine. I could have used those same paints again and painted these ornaments. And I may do some like that, but I just thought, you know, I've been wanting to test out these watercolor grounds. Why not give it a try? I know how Lindsay's test went on paper, and I thought, I wonder how it'll be on wood. So, of course, you know, we had to find out. And I just want a little dot to come here. One wouldn't, so I'm just dropping one in. Just a couple places where I feel like, hey, maybe we could have had a snowflake there. And those are definitely spreading. Wow, those are definitely moving. You see how much those are moving on the wood? It's kind of swirling. It's like almost like the sky is swirling above them. Now, before I dropped that, this part up here was starting to lose the darkness of the rings. Like it was dissipating into the rest of the background. So I thought that's interesting too. But now that white is bleeding through along the rings. Going to be curious to see how that does continuing forward. All right, I'm going to let this one set. That is really, I don't know how I feel about that, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, see, that's still moving. I was wondering if I came back and added white once it's set, if it would stop. Like this one, it drew all the white away. I had a void where the actual drop initially hit because it all spread. All right, so that again is the gesso, and I'm going to just actually set this one on top of the gesso, and I'll show you guys my little design. I don't know if he'll show up or not, but see the snowman? It's the gnome building a snowman. I thought it was adorable. So that was one that I said, if it doesn't work out, I'll paint this in acrylic. So I did this one on one of the gessoed ornaments. And I was like, if it doesn't work out with the gesso, I'll just do, paint it in acrylic later. So he's there. Okay. Is everybody ready for Christmas? I have one more gift to get. I thought I was done. No, I have one more gift to get. Yep. A nor'easter, 12 to 18 inches of snow. Yep. That's what they're saying. They're saying that, like, if that's what I was talking about. They said if it took a certain track, like areas like where Joseph is at, could see like 20 to 24 inches of snow. Sorry, Joseph. I'll gladly trade with you if you'd like. But if the track goes different, then the snow could be more up here versus coastal. So I don't know. We'll see. Either way, it sounds like we're going to have a white Christmas, so I'm excited. Oh, that's neat. So you do a neighbor cookie exchange. That's cool. I have a bit of candy planned to make, that, or I'd like to. If I have the time, I'm going to do it. I've got maybe half my wrapping done. We have a big family. I think I've got like half my wrapping done. All right, I'm working with Lunar Black right now. And I'm going to come straight in. Here's the sky. It's almost like that's not dark enough. He's looking up to the sky. So we're just seeing a little bit of the brim. Tara's not ready for Christmas at all. I'm not yet. And that's why I know it's going to get so crazy that I just said, nope, this will be the last live stream until Christmas. And that's going to take a ton of stress off right there. And yeah. I didn't have something already planned out, so I just felt it might be best. I'm just working on the round shape of his face. So there is his hat. Oh, and we can do his little mouth too, because that will be black as well. Going the points that were the widest. I'm just kind of making like the curves for the corners of his smile. so that it'll look like those are his little cheeks puffed out because he's smiling because he's so happy it's snowing. He's very happy. He's very happy it's snowing. There we go. All right, I'm going to set that aside again because that needs to dry so I can do the orange, and then we'll do some shading on our snowman. French toast. That's funny. Yeah, you think about that. Like, why? Why do they buy out like all the milk and eggs if a storm's coming? If the power goes out, and I mean, if it's cold enough that it's snowing, you can just put that stuff outside and it'll stay cold enough. But it's cold enough that it could freeze it, not just keep it refrigerated. Like anytime we have, people over, that's extra refrigerator. We'll tell them, put it in the extra refrigerator, which means go open the door and set it out on the deck. Have egg fights. Power goes out. Well, nobody wants to get stuck without that, Dylan. If power goes out and the stores can't be open, maybe they fear that they could run out, so they have to hoard it. We're talking about TP here, people. For those of you who are watching the replay and not in the live chat. There we go. Okay, so again, I am going to do his little, just refining the point of my brush. So very happy it's snowing. I'm not sure when it's supposed to start for us here. I just know that I think it's like, I want to say it's like an all-day event tomorrow, starting tonight into tomorrow. Look at them. And see the way that that dried? It did blend down, like very similar. The Daniel Smith has a smoother blend to it. And so you see the difference right there between the core and the Daniel Smith. Interesting. And now let's look at this guy. Look how much the blue shows up. It's like, where did the neutral tint go? I don't know. But that's interesting. And the white just kind of ran. We have this like swirling storm going on above his head, which is fine. Maybe that was like did the like the time lapse. You do the time lapse photography looking straight up at the sky and you see all the stars swirl around. I don't know what the snowman's doing. Maybe he's spinning in the sky stationary. That could be too. Could be. And we will be having live chat tomorrow for patrons. It'll be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We may be chatting while I may be making cookies while we chat. I don't know. My eyes are like just starting to go with this, trying to get this fine. It's like all of a sudden I'm seeing two of the black lines and I want to paint. Apparently I'm painting the wrong one. And I have to stop or it's just going to make my snowman get smaller and smaller. All day this Saturday. Yeah. I need something is Saturday. We have a birthday Saturday that we have lots of December birthdays. Mine starts it off. And then we have a few other family members that are in December. No, mine doesn't. No, another family member starts it off 4 or 5 days before me. And then it's me. And then the 18th is another one. And then the 24th is another one. Lots of December birthdays. I think December and July is like our family's busiest birthday months. It's funny how that works out. With the exception of June, where we have 4 family members that have the same day of the month for their birthday. Good morning, Starving. Oh, I rinsed out and I didn't need to rinse out. I don't have his buttons on yet. No buttons. Does anybody else do ornaments? And I like to do them and I like to date the backs. So on the back, usually I'll sign and date the back. And then I like to give them as gifts. Ooh, did you get to the beach this morning, Starving? That picture that you shared of the sunrise over in the art group is beautiful. Okay, so here's the 3. Let's put those side by side now so you can see them so far. We have the Daniel Smith watercolor ground, the core watercolor ground, and the acrylic gesso. So definitely 2 very different looks. And I'm really surprised at how much more like the vibrancy of the blue popped through with this one versus the other 2. The other 2 look very similar, just with core having, you know, the Daniel Smith is much softer. It's a much smoother blending. And I'll probably come back because this absorbed in, you see that the bleed proof white has that blue tone to it. So before we're done, I'll probably tap that with some brighter white at the end. Next, I'm going to do his carrot nose and do some of the shading. So we'll do that, and those three are done. Yeah, that's the core, and this is the Daniel Smith. All right, I got some orange here, and I think this is a combination of Pyrrole Scarlet and New Gamboge. You guys can kind of see that. Oh, nice. Baby, a baby New Year, or no, he was born on New Year's Eve, so not baby New Year, but almost baby New Year. That's mine and Lou's anniversary as well, New Year's Eve. Oh, what we were thinking. We say that too sometimes now. We're like, what were we thinking? Because, you know, everybody wants to get together on New Year's Eve, and sometimes you just want to spend your anniversary, just the two of you. Okay. And I'm just darkening up a little bit of this. I think it's part, you can't see, it's off the screen, but I'm just darkening up a little bit so that I can add in shadow at the base. All right. Let's paint some noses. I'm just going to drop in with a darker color, kind of along the edge and at the base, just like that. Okay, so that nose is done. Let's go to this nose. I'm going to do all the noses, then come back, shade all the bodies, and they're finished. I have a water drop that I do not want to become a problem. And then coming back with the darker color at the base and a little bit along one of the sides. There we go. Last one. You're seeing me rinse because I have the darker color in the brush. I'm going to come back and start again with the lighter value. There we go. And then drop in the dark at the bottom. Okay, and it's not showing as much of a difference on this one as it is on the other two. So definitely I would say with the watercolor on the gesso, the colors are much more vibrant. Colors are definitely much more vibrant. Okay. Now I'm going to come in some cleanish water. And then I'm going to take just a little bit, I think, of my sky color, because he's a snowman and he's white and he would be reflecting the sky. So I'm thinning this down so that it is a much lighter value. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that to the edges, some underneath his face. Let that be wet so it blends out and I don't have any harsh lines. Going back with a little bit more. And there's our snowman. Okay, same thing. I'm going to wet him first. And I'm just wetting the white parts of my snowman. Beyond, well beyond where I'm going to want to be. So that when I drop that color there, it can kind of spread out and won't end up with a harsh edge. And then I'm just going to go along the edge and let that kind of spread. And we'll see if it spreads. It definitely did spread on the... And this one has more of almost like an illustrative line on this side. Rinsing out my brush. Just like I did last time, I'm just going to come back and see if I can't soften that line. Kind of give him some dimension. I like him. Thank you. I might need a little bit like up here on the sides of his cheeks. I didn't do that on the other one either. I probably should, because his face doesn't have any shadow to make it be more three-dimensional. Clean that out. Oh, I touched my black on his smile. There we go. There we go. So there's that one. Thank you. Doing just a little bit at the edges. There we go. Really? Yeah, Rob, I love them. And a lot of, well, see, a little bit of backstory. I have like my tree, well, one of my trees, my main tree. My main tree is all like special ornaments. They all, they're either handmade or they've been given as gifts or for special occasions and stuff like that. So it's like every year you put up the Christmas tree and it's like a walk down memory lane and recalling all the, what was happening when we got that ornament. And this just putting that water there, when I touched that side, it bled some of that blue in. So I'm going to be really careful with this one because it wants to just pull the color from beside it. So that's definitely not, it feels like the gesso, which I kind of would expect, it is drying, on the surface. And our snowman he's going to have little lines the way that this is going. You see the lines coming through? So I think I'm going to just kind of pull some of that back if I can and just forget about it on this one. He's just pure white. He's kind of two-dimensional. Yeah, so it's always been ornaments for special occasions. So I wanted to start painting some ornaments and then giving ornaments each year. And like we had a couple family members that bought their first house last year. So I did like our first home, some ornaments like that to commemorate that happening. And yeah, I think they make lovely gifts. Of course, I'm the one giving it, so that's just my whatever my opinion is worth. Okay. So right now, let's just take a quick peek because I want to freshen up some of these white dots so that I can actually just be done and it'll be all done. What I'll do is I'll spray some of these. I don't have it in here right now, but I will spray, and I'm not sure, our weather's not going to be very nice to, our weather's not going to be very nice for spraying these outside. Not going to be very conducive. And I need to spray them. So I'm most likely going to spray these when I don't have to stay in the studio. Like at the very end of the day, I'll spray them and leave the studio. Because if these get wet, they'd be ruined because it's watercolor. So I have to seal them, and I can't paint over it because I could risk smearing it. I suppose I could pour resin over them, and that might work, but I don't think Lou has any resin projects going on in the next couple days where if he would have extra and I could just say, hey, pour, coat over my ornaments for me. And don't brush it on, just pour it and let it spread and level itself out. All I'm doing is hitting a couple of these spots where they were dull or turned, more of the light blue, and just freshening them up, making them look more white again. And I'm curious to see, does it stay white this time, or Does it still, because this is bleed proof white, but we're not working on regular watercolor paper. Ooh, nice. Wood burning. I haven't done wood burning. Ages and ages. You could make some really interesting ornaments too with the wood burning. Okay. There we go. So that was the three different. Now we see them side by side. Daniel Smith is definitely a nice softer effect. The colors kind of blend very well into each other. They absorbed well into the wood, whereas Core gave you a few more edges. Which one do you guys like best? Let me bring these all up close. So Core is at the top. We have Daniel Smith, Core, and acrylic gesso. Which do you like best as far as the effects that you get? I'm torn between Core and the Daniel Smith. I'm not super thrilled with the gesso at this time, which means if I continue not to be a fan of the gesso, then all I'm going to do is save those ones that I've primed and I'll just paint them with acrylic. You both, okay, so Rob likes Core. We have a vote for the Core. We have a vote for the Core. And Daniel Smith is a close second. Yeah, I kind of like that difference and that you get the blooms happening, and I'm liking that. Okay. Next, I want to see, and if it doesn't work, not a big deal. I can just go over it and blend the background and it will be fine. But I have an idea, and I'm thinking kind of like a sky in the background that is like got the northern lights. And so I'm making sure that I wet my my cobalt teal blue, and that's the one of the ones that I have in, you can't see it, but that's one I have from a stick. So I'm going to be working with that for part of my northern lights. And I also have the duochrome aquamarine, which when that catches the shimmer, that is this color, which is not showing up aquamarine on camera right now, but it is very, it gets a shimmer that's almost like a silvery effect. I think that would give a really neat effect to it if it were on a tree with lights. So I'm just adding some water to that one as well. I'm going to combine those two colors. The darker blue one that's this one, and it's acrylic gesso. And for whatever reason, that blue, I mixed them all the same. And here it absorbed in and the color softened, just like you'd expect watercolor too. Only here it has just sat there and the blue became more prominent, whereas the neutral tint just seemed to disappear. And we have that, this was ultramarine blue and neutral tint. So, I mean, the neutral tint is still there a bit because that doesn't look completely like ultramarine, but the bright boldness of the ultramarine is coming through more so than like with these. They just kind of absorbed into it, which is the purpose of the watercolor ground. It is to allow it to absorb in. So, I don't know. All right. Yeah, exactly. Star trails. That's what I was saying. Like when you set the camera at time lapse and just let it capture it. So mixing up the same kind of background. I've got my neutral tint, and I definitely love Daniel Smith's neutral tint. I believe, I don't remember if I got Payne's Gray. I think I have Payne's Gray. perhaps not. I was thinking I had Payne's Gray, but I don't. I don't think I do. I don't think that's one that I've gotten. Yeah, it definitely makes it stay sitting on top more. You're welcome, George. Marty, it definitely like prevents it much more from being absorbed in. But I had seen Lindsay, if I'm sure if you search Watercolor Ground on her channel, she did this same kind of test, but she did it on paper. And it was very interesting to see the effects that she got, because with the three, it was very similar. Very similar. So I thought, well, why not try? If it's similar results on paper, wood is also absorbent. Let's try it on wood and see what we get. But all right, so I'm going to start with a horizon. And I'm going to need this to be wet and wet. I'm forgetting that I just said I wanted. So I'm going very wet on this. Is it going to work? I have no clue. So making this very wet. I'm going to drop in some of this color. Then I'm going to mix up. This is that cobalt teal blue. Some of the duochrome aquamarine. I think that's very wet at the moment. I think it's probably too wet. I'm just letting some of that come off. And I'm letting that tip because I want, that effect, like the Northern Lights, how it kind of, you get that fading down. Whether or not this is going to work, I have no idea. I just figured, why not give it a try? And this is the wonkiest tree I've ever seen, but we'll fix that. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, yours has not, I'm sure has not arrived yet, but it is coming for December. The video's done. I'm ready to pop the video up as soon as I know that the supplies will be reaching everybody's door. They were just later than normal this month, which has been, everything's been crazy. Very crazy. All right, so for my snow, I think I need to rinse out in clean water. I have some Chinese white and I have interference blue. And this one, you see there, it gets quite blue when it reflects. I'm going to mix a little bit of that with my interference blue, this one, with my Chinese white. And I'm going to come through and do the snow on the ground here. I'm not going to really touch my sky yet because that is still quite wet. Now, one thing I will say is my sky would certainly have, my snow would have some of my sky color though reflecting in it. It wouldn't be pure white, especially if this is nighttime. It's not going to look pure white. So I'm going to take some of this Chinese white, bring it over here. And I'm just mixing it with a little bit of that blue that was kind of on the palette. Just enough to get a few different values. And again, I'm going to be very careful not to touch the back and touch the sky at this point because it's still too wet to do that. Oh my gosh, yes. The whole year has felt like that, Rob. It's like, boom, hey, welcome to the holidays. It was so fast. So fast. Dropping in a little bit more of the duochrome oceanic, which is the one that has the shimmer when it dries, when you tip it. And actually, I want that to kind of be like on a, I want it to feel like it's on a ribbon. I probably shouldn't have done it yet, but I did because I'm impatient. I put more of it along this line, and then I'm just going to tip it. See if I can't get what I just put in to run towards the top. Let gravity take over. At the same time, I could put a little bit of the dark back in the top. Tip it and let gravity pull it down. So that I'm kind of getting some of the lines, like the streaks, if you would. I wonder if he forgot something. We just pulled in and then pulled right back out. I can see like the road from my studio window. There we go. Okay. So far, how's that? Does that look like Northern Lights? Maybe. maybe. I think I need to darken up some of my sky below it, but I'm going to let that dry. And then maybe I'll come in and kind of negative paint some space and let that do what it does. I have to wait also to do my tree. So I'm going to set that one aside. That's on the watercolor ground, the Daniel Smith watercolor ground. All right. Excuse me. um, Great question, Rob. I am going to use a very, very light coat at first of the Krylon Clear. I don't think it's sitting here in the studio. No, I just have the workable fixative here. I'm going to use the Krylon Clear. I'm going to hold it from very high above, so it's just a nice fine mist because I don't want it to ruin my watercolor. And then once that dries, I'll come back with another coat. Once that dries, I can hit it again with another coat, and these will be nice and sealed, and I won't have to worry about if they get wet. And you can seal the front and back, but the back's easy. The back I could just seal with some like some gloss medium, like Liquitex or Golden gloss medium. I could just gloss the back of that and it'd be done. But for this, it will, for the front, I don't want to ruin the watercolor, and so I can't brush it on. So I'm definitely going to lightly spray it on. It's going to be a very fine mist when I put it on that. I'm just double checking chat real quick. You belong to which one, Marty? Look at that now. Now that it has set, now I think it's starting to look like some northern lights. I am liking that. I'm liking the effect that it's getting there. And this tree is going to be all snow covered. Really liking the snow here. I think that oh, the art group. Yeah. I'm going to bring it up to touch that. I think I can probably do it now. It's probably dry enough to make sure, I don't want to end up with some like really stark white line there where the two kind of meet. There we go. And I'm not worried about the tree because I'm going to paint that right over everything, and it's going to be darker. It'll be a much darker green to start with. So there, we'll let that set. All right. And this one, I think I'm going to do a Christmas tree. I'm not going to do the northern. Oh, maybe I should try. I should try another one with the northern lights so we can see. I'm not going to do it with the gesso because I just don't think it's going to work right. But we'll try it with the core watercolor ground to see if we can get this similar type of effect or how it reacts, since we had much more, much different reaction here, and this was so much softer. So we'll see how are they in comparison. So I will go ahead and do one more, and I've already got my dark color. So again, I need this to be wet. I didn't pay attention to painting in my negative space on my tree area. So I'll just kind of be careful when I put the dark in. my paint is all dry. There we go. And kind of do the same. Trail down like that, and we kind of came through here. Right. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I want to see if we can get similar. See, I think with the core, it sits a lot, sits on top longer as well, where the Daniel Smith, it was just absorbing. It was absorbing right in. All right, so I'm going to do some more water in these white spaces. Tip those. Getting the duochrome color now, the duochrome aquamarine, which is also Daniel Smith, blending it with that. Now I'm going to come back in. See, this is definitely not, and I don't think it was as wet either. I mean, like this stayed wet where everything was moving around. There was a lot more water. Getting some more sky color. And we're just going to come back. Apparently not wet enough. Yeah, that is, well, you should have the one, Rob, which is the cobalt teal blue. And then the other color that I'm using is the duochrome aquamarine. And I'm using those together for this color. And I'm going to start dropping it in, but I have it tipped this way so that hopefully we'll get some running happening. I want that kind of bleeding into each other so we get those lines. Interesting. All right. So more of my neutral tint and ultramarine. And I'm just going to drop it in here, and then I'm going to tip it and let it run downwards, just like I did with the other one. Bring it back a little. And I think that when this sets and dries, I can come in and, because it'll be darker, and possibly even here, you'll kind of smooth out the bottom part. Because you know the bottom part is almost like it's a soft line, but it's like straight, and then everything kind of like goes up from there. Those ribbons. I don't know. And I definitely need to make this part darker because we have to match here. How that's going to work out for my little tree, I don't know, but we'll see. Hopefully it will dry lighter like the other one had. The other one, if you're watching this one as it has been drying, it's drying much, much lighter. I'm really liking that. And I'm going to want to darken up some of the sky. All right. I don't know that I want to put too much in the... Hopefully I won't make this bleed downwards too bad. Making sure we have some of the sky color in our snow. And I'm grabbing this is interference blue. And just going to put a little bit of that in this. And then come back through here. It'll just add a little bit of sparkle. Which I think would look good if, you know, when the lights from a Christmas tree pick it up. I will not be, this will be the last stream before Christmas. So next Thursday I won't be streaming, and just because I know there's so much happening leading up to Christmas. I'm hosting a very big event on the 23rd. So yeah, it's going to be no stream next Thursday. Will we have one in between Christmas and New Year's? I think so. I think I'm going to be ready to be back and hanging out with you guys. So I think it's just going to be the 1 week. If that changes, I will make sure that I update it, of course, on my Clark Fine Art page over on MeWe and Facebook. So I'll let you know what's happening there. But I definitely not next week. Not next week. Next week is my catch up. Make sure that patrons have everything that they are supposed to get from December and getting ready for Christmas. All right, I'm going to come back through and put in some darker values in my sky. I probably should wait. I don't know if this is going to... I don't know if it'll bleed. Kind of just pulling some of that down so that it looks like the top part is a ribbon. And it's not a solid line. You know how it fades and it like feathers up. That's what I was just doing there. All right. I have to let those two be. That is just still, you see how wet that is? That is still very wet. Like I said, core, it feels like it sets on top a lot more. Whereas the Daniel Smith watercolor ground is very absorbent. And I told you they feel different too when you're applying them. Core has a similar feeling when you're painting it on to gesso. So the way that it sits on top like that in relation to like with the gesso, everything's sitting on top. I think that those are very similar. Core's kind of that in between Daniel Smith and the acrylic gesso. Daniel Smith becomes very absorbent and it just sucks right into it. It's made for some beautiful soft blending and even blending. So I don't know. I don't know which I, if I like one more than the other, but I definitely, I do like the softness and the way that's feeling so far. We will see. We will see. Oh, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas as well. Okay. I guess I don't want to do nothing at all. But I don't want to get out acrylic paint. Might do a Christmas tree. We'll just do a Christmas tree here. Perhaps. I still have to paint these two Christmas trees, but I think this is going to be, it feels very cool to the touch. I'm getting a little bit of, I see a little bit of that blue on my fingers. So I have a feeling if I do the tree, well, it might bleed, but you know what? Let's mix up our color. All right, so I'm going for sap green. This palette still, you see that? It still beads up. I do not recommend this Meeden. Can you guys see that there? The Meeden palette. This has done nothing but bead, and I've taken like a magic eraser to it. I've scrubbed it. Gosh knows I've worked the heck out of this thing for a while. And it still beads up. Frustrating as heck. I don't like it. All right, and then I'm going to take some neutral tint and just tone that down just a little bit, darken it up, and there's my evergreen color. And darken a little bit more up on this side. So I have some darker values. All right. There we go. Sap green and neutral tint. That's what we are doing our tree with. Yeah, as of right now, I don't know that we have plans for Christmas Eve other than relaxing for the calm in between two storms, because we are hosting Christmas dinner. And we're hosting on the 23rd for like different parts of our family. I'm looking forward to it though. Should be lots of fun. Decorate like the world might show up. I'm not worrying if some of this white shows through. Doesn't bother me at all because in fact I'm going to come back and put white back in here. And my tree is definitely getting quite wide, so I'm being conscious of that, and I'm going to stop. I went a little too wide to start with. I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be a little taller, but I didn't want to keep going wide. So just, that's all right. We're just going to go like that. And this is just a snowy tree. Right now I'm just kind of correcting. It was a little wonky. I wanted it to stand a little different. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to drop some darker values in different places. And then I will just see how it dries. And that will help me when I come back in to put the snow on with the bleed proof white. There we go. There's our tree. And I don't know if I can get away with this one yet. Maybe. If it doesn't work right, I'll stop. So I say. I don't mind if it fuzzes out a little bit. It's, you know, it's the tree. It's not, and it's not super close to us either, so that's okay. Again, I'm not worried if some of the white shows through, because I'm just going to be going back and putting white on it anyway. Yeah, my brothers and sister-in-law will be up Christmas. It's going to be fun. I'm just picking up some of those darker values. Yes, yes, exactly. It's going to repeat next week. So you've got the storm now, and then you have another one coming right behind it. It's going to do some of the same type of stuff. And depending on the track of that second storm, either we're going to get slammed or the East Coast and possibly George and Joseph will get snow. Could be a white Christmas, George. I like that tree better, for sure. That's more what I was going for with this guy, but who knows? Maybe the white will redeem him. I don't know. He's a little full. He's a full tree. That's one of those ones that you pick and Lou warns me about, and we get home and it grows 3 times its size. You snap the lines from having it baled so you can get it home and get it in the house in one piece, and it pops open and it touches from one wall to the other. Anybody else have that issue? Your tree grows larger on the way home? I know I sure do. Okay. This one's still not quite dry. It's still got spots that are quite wet. All right. I think I'm going to hit this one with my air tool, my heat tool rather, just so that I can dry that green and be able to paint the Dr. Paige Martins on it. So you guys say it's not too bad, so we're going to go ahead and just go with it. Just tipping it so that I can see when the shininess is all gone. I don't want to hit it with the heat tool too much because if I dry this too quickly, it is wood. I could cause the disc to crack. So I don't want to dry it too quickly. Just enough. Yeah. We'll see. If I get, and now I'm going to switch to my number 4 again. So I think I only used the 8 and the 4. Grabbing a little extra because there's not a whole lot left in my cap. And this time I'm not going to want it thin like before. And I'm just kind of tapping in like it's sitting, there's going to be branches that come towards me. So just trying to keep that in mind. And they will be in layers. So ones that are coming towards me, I just kind of just dot downward. I loved the way the tree that is back here behind me, that one was, I think that was, when did I do that one? Was that paint along for patrons? No, that was paint along for patrons for November. Oh, this one goes with the patron art supply sample this month. That's the video. So we're going to get to paint that one together. I loved how that tree came out. That's been one of my favorite trees to date. Just the way that the snow just happened to work on it, and I loved it. All right, there is our snowy tree. And I'm going to put a little bit we definitely have snow around the base of our tree. This is all snow, but I'm just kind of putting in some brighter spots. And if I don't like them afterwards, I can always go back over it. I think I'm going to thin that just a little bit. Now it's flowing much better. There we go. It's very hard because that white just washes it out. There we go. So there's definitely different values in there. I'll get pictures of these two and share them. I think this could stand with some more green. I think the back could also be darker. Definitely a much darker sky. Now this one is just not ready yet for bleed proof white to go on there. It is absolutely not ready. But I like how some of the white space is showing through. Already looks like we have some there. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for joining us. All right. Just grabbing a little bit more of the green. See if we can't brighten some of this up. I'm just going to pull downward. It's almost like it needs more green in it. I almost think I liked it better when it was softer. How many of you do that? Like, oh, we'll just give it some more. And you go, oh, I wish I would have left it alone. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I think I do want to darken up the sky. And so again, that is neutral tint. It just looks almost black, doesn't it? At mass tone, it's a wonderful substitution for black. I almost think I want to go that dark. Let's see what we got. I can negatively paint in and around my tree. I'm not worried about that. Hello, Shanna. Caution artists at play. For those who aren't familiar, I saw your cards. I loved them. As you saw, I left you a comment. I loved them. Loved them. All right, I'm just going to darken up this side. I definitely like the darker. I think it kind of makes our tree stand out more, and the northern lights really. It's one thing I've never gotten to see. They are it is possible to see them here in Maine, but I have yet to see the northern lights. Has not happened for me yet. Again, I'm just going to kind of pull down. Actually, I think I'm going to pull this way because where you stop, there's like almost dots there now because where you stop, you deposit. So I'm going to pull this way. To kind of add to that like feathering effect. Yes, that's much better. Pull those out. There we go. And now I'll put the dark up the top. Yeah, I was like, I had heard that there was a chance we were going to see them, and then so I was like, oh, I was all excited, and then it was cloudy as heck that day. I was like, we're not going to see anything. There we go. There they are. You see, I just kind of pulled up into that. Just going over this again, making this darker. Everything's drying so fast. It's drying fast on my palette too quickly. Of course, the fact that there's not a lot of paint there because I've used it all doesn't help either. There we go. There we go. So there's that one. So that is the Daniel Smith watercolor ground. I'll have to paint this one for you guys and share it with you because I just so want to do him, but I'm not going to start him today because I'm going to paint him in acrylic since it was on the acrylic gesso one. And that's going to be our snowman with our little gnome building a snowman. That one, this will probably end up on my tree. This probably won't go anywhere but right downstairs to my own tree. If we're being perfectly honest. Oh, but yeah, I love it. Love it. Okay, so let's try to see if we can't fix this one up. And then we will call it a day. We'll discuss how I feel about the different watercolor grounds. And again, I'm not going to dry this very long because I don't want to dry it out too quickly and then crack my wood slice. So just going to hit this with enough that I can paint over it. Looks like it was just a little wet still in the center of that. And again, I don't want to dry it too much because right where it is, where it looks like it's a little damp, is in one of the rings. Actually, I don't know if you guys, yeah, see right there? It's like where the rings come around from the tree itself. So I'm not going to get too over carried away. All right, again, grabbing some clean water. Thank you. These are fun. I love doing ornaments, and I want this to be, I want to be able to move it, but I don't want it to be too thin. I don't want the grain to show through. All right, there's a lot of paint on this, so I'm going to start down here. I'm going to pay attention to where there are some white spaces, and they're just going to become snow for sure. Okay, Rob, thank you. Oh, yeah, that's the fun of it. Throw yourself at it. Just see what happens. And better yet, do it live where everybody's watching. Why not? Oh. You know, you have to be able to laugh at yourself. I definitely would say if you can't laugh at yourself, this is definitely not something you should do. Because Mistakes will be made, my friends. Mistakes will be made. But that's okay. And thank you to our moderators, Tara and Joseph. Their channels are linked in the description below. If you have not checked out their channels yet, if they're actually new to you, I hope you will check them out. Joseph streams generally on Mondays, about the same time of the day that I do. Oh, I like the way that one came out. And Tara doesn't stream, but she does have some great videos. So yeah, I hope that you guys will check them out. Their links are in the description below. I really like the way that tree came out. All right. So yeah, huge like high five to our mods. Although they don't usually have to keep a lot of crazy stuff out right now, you know, as we grow, I suspect their jobs will get a little more difficult. And speaking of growing, you know, I saw there's a very high percentage of you who watch that are not subscribed yet. And I am trying my darndest to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. There are a lot of features I want to unlock here on the channel. So if you're not subscribed yet, but you're enjoying the content, you know, perhaps consider hitting that subscribe button. It definitely greatly helps out. And if you are enjoying it and you hit that thumbs up button, it certainly helps me get YouTube to put my videos and my channel in front of more people. So thank you for that. All right, so mix up more of that dark color. There we go. And I'm going to really darken up my sky on this one too. Oh, thank you. Everybody. All together now. Smash the red button. Oh. Tara said no streaming for her. She'd forget her name. That's funny. I think I remember after my first stream, I remember talking to Joseph before I did it. And he was like, you're going to be exhausted. And I'm like, exhausted? I'm going to sit there and talk for a couple hours and do art. How's that going to be exhausting? I talk all the time. I was exhausted. I think I remember messaging him afterwards and I was like, you were right. I am so exhausted. It takes a lot out of you. It was like trying to follow the chat and work on the project and remember to keep talking, not get lost, you know, try to avoid the endless and things like that. Oh, it's definitely, you will never forget your first live stream. I think Joseph will probably agree. And don't expect it to be perfect and everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Yeah, you guys don't have the fiber there yet, do you, Shanna? I don't know. We got fiber and I just love it. It was cable before that. I was not thrilled with that, but all right, so just doing the negative painting around this tree. I'm going to carry this all the way over. I'm going to carry this all the way over and I'm going to pull it into, like I did on the other one. Actually, I'm going to flick up into my dark so that I have the thin lines starting at the base. And any color that's deposited is deposited where I want the darkest color. Yeah, see, absolutely. You just never forget your first live stream. Just be prepared. Everything's going to go wrong. it's possible and it's okay. And yeah, that and, you know, things happen. You definitely can't stress. If you're one that will stress really easily if things go awry, maybe live streaming is not for you. Not to say you couldn't get yourself used to it. And right now I'm just bringing up some of that, trying to make it look like the northern lights are feathering up into our sky. There we go. Do the same up here. I like the darker color much better. I definitely like the darker color. Become a patron. We have a blast. We'll be live chatting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, excuse me. 10:30. That gives me time to be awake, have had coffee, have started my day, be a functioning human being who is capable of talking well with others. It definitely takes coffee for that to be possible. That's poor Lou. I think I've actually inadvertently glared at him before, talking to me before I was like a quarter of the way into my cup of coffee. It was like, sorry. Just focusing on the negative painting around this tree. And you don't have to be that precious. It's just jagged in. And then kind of smooth along our northern lights to make them look like they're kind of a ribbon in the sky. Now, the one thing I didn't do with the Dr. P.H. Martins is put the highlights into the snow, but you know what? I kind of think I like it just the way it is. Here we go. I like the softness of the Daniel Smith, but I also really like the core. It's hard to choose. It's hard to choose which is my favorite. I think depending on the look that I want to achieve would depend on which one I would grab. So let's set these. I'm going to get this paper towel out of the way. This has like the crumbs. That is one thing. The bark will leave crumbs everywhere. Little marks, pieces of itself. Okay, so we have the Daniel Smith are these. Oops, let me move this up a little bit. There we go. Daniel Smith are these guys. Then we have the core, and that's these guys. And then, of course, the acrylic gesso was this one on our snowman, our little happy snowman looking up, says let it snow. And I'm going to be coming back through with my silver Posca, and I'm going to write let it snow up here across the top where, so that's, he's looking up and it says let it snow, and of course all the snow is falling down. So that's what I'm going to do on those. I am not adding anything else to this. Now, if I wanted to, if I had the Poscas in like all the different colors, I could put little dots and put lights on my tree, but I'm not going to. I really like it the way that it is, just looking like a natural setting, but yet it's a beautifully flocked Christmas tree. So And the way that looks, I would say that's some kind of fir, maybe. Looks like maybe it could be a fir tree versus a pine with the long needles. So which do you like better? I don't think I'm a fan of the gesso on the wood for watercolor. Although it worked really well for Lindsay when she did it on paper. And again, I'll try to find that video and link it below so that if anybody's watching the replay, you can see that for yourself and go check it out. So the it worked for her on paper. And that's why I was hoping, you know, paper being absorbent, wood being absorbent, that it would also work on the wood. But I don't think so. Not so much. Not so much. I'm not liking that. So what I'm going to do is, because I primed all of these, I'm just going to grab my acrylics and I'm going to paint them. They're not going to go to waste. And of course, this guy, I might record him and then put him out as a short little video for you guys when I paint him, because he is getting painted. I really like that one. So for the watercolor ground, and remember, as I said in the beginning, Core has watercolor ground, and then they have cold press ground, which has more texture to it. So these are the Core. These are the Daniel Smith watercolor ground. Daniel Smith on the wood gives you beautifully soft blending, gives you pretty even blending. If that's something that you like, or if you struggle with, you know, getting your colors to blend nice and evenly, the Daniel Smith watercolor ground really gave that. So, but I definitely like the Core. I'm looking like I'm getting kind of a bloom here. I will wait and I'll probably go back over that one more time to darken that back up. But like blooms, you're going to get blooms in the Core, much like you would on watercolor paper. So it reacts a lot. It's not as forgiving. How's that? I think maybe that's a better way, but I like it. I definitely like it. Depending on the effect I was going for would determine which one I wanted. The colors look a bit more vibrant with the Core and a bit more muted with the Daniel Smith. Now, granted, this is still drying a bit, but even in the parts that I can see that are dry, have already dried more, it's still more vibrant than with the Daniel Smith. And I was mixing, that color was the same throughout. So you can see the differences there. I hope that helped. I hope that helps you decide if you want to give either one of these or both of them a try. They are linked in the description below. The Daniel Smith watercolor ground, like I said in the beginning, it has this like airy, moussey, whipped feeling to it. Versus the Core feels much like acrylic gesso, applying acrylic gesso. So there's definitely a difference there. This, where I showed you in the beginning, that did not apply very even. Let me bring the side camera back on so I can show you. If you remember in the beginning, we looked at this guy and you saw how rough textured that was. You're not seeing that anymore. That's not really showing up there. You're not seeing the texture. It's not prominent. And I mean, this one is just, look at him. He's smooth. And then I'll show you these two as well. So that was the Daniel Smith watercolor ground. And that is the Core. And then of course, this was just with the acrylic gesso. And I definitely, this one, I can absolutely say I'm not a fan of that. Definitely not a fan of that. So there you have it. I hope that everybody has a very Merry Christmas. Again, there will be no live stream next week, but I will see you back the following week. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to all the patrons. I'm going to put another video up probably right about here that you might like to watch if you're watching this on the replay, and that'll come up next. And until next time, my friends, very Merry Christmas. I probably will be back in between Christmas and New Year's. Pay attention to social media for that. And other than that, have a great rest of your day. I will see you all later. Keep creating. Bye.